The movie begins in an Afghan war zone, where several women are fleeing in terror from an enemy soldier. Unfortunately, the soldier catches up to them and doesn't hesitate to pull the trigger. Suddenly, that same soldier, Mickey, wakes up in his native Australia alongside his family, with whom he's traveling to his brother Noah's house for a well-deserved vacation after his military service. Even though his teenage kids, Jake and Jane, complain about the trip, Mickey promises that they'll have the best vacation of their lives, and he has the support of his wife, Sophie. They finally arrive at Noah's house in the middle of the woods, but they find no trace of him. Even worse, the place is turned upside down with a bunch of old food lying around and a foul smell. In response, Mickey tries to keep it together, suggesting that maybe his brother got really drunk and went somewhere else. Beyond the condition of the house, Jake and Jane are surprised by the family photos of their Uncle Noah, their grandfather, and their great-grandfather, all of whom served in the army. Seeing this, Jake feels compelled to continue the family tradition by enlisting in the military, even though his father forbids it. Despite the fact that Mickey, now a retired Special Forces legend, is no longer on active duty, he doesn't have very fond memories of the war. While waiting for Noah's return, Jake and Jane are bored to death in a remote forest, but instead of scolding them, Mickey promises that if they stop complaining, they can choose their next vacation spot. Of course, they choose New York. The next day, after paying respects at the graves of his father and grandfather, Mickey gives his children a shooting lesson with a hunting rifle. The family is so focused on this activity that they don't realize someone is watching them from the bushes. Later, Jake tries to turn on the house's huge old TV by hitting it. Mickey immediately checks the back panel and notices something his kids couldn't see, so he sends them to their room. It turns out the old TV was just a facade for hiding bags of drugs and other items that shock both Mickey and his wife. Right at that moment, Jake notices a foul smell coming from under the bed. When Mickey goes to inspect, he finds his brother Noah's corpse in a bag. The family has no time to process their loss because Mickey rushes them to leave the house as soon as possible. As soon as they exit with their luggage, they're startled by a suspicious truck circling the area. Mickey immediately ushers his family back into the house to prepare weapons, along with his wife. Although the rest of the night goes by without incident, more vehicles appear at dawn. Taking advantage of their sleeping kids, Mickey and Sophie step outside to confront the suspects. To Mickey's surprise, there are several former soldiers he served with in the past, led by Kane, who reveals they had an arrangement with his brother to hide illegal merchandise in his house. But they executed Noah when they discovered that he was stealing from them. Despite that incident, Kane promises they'll let them go if Mickey hands over the bags. However, the protagonist is certain that they'll be killed anyway for having seen the contents. When Kane leaves to get reinforcements, Mickey's family quickly flees the house with the bags, catching the guard off guard. By the time Kane realizes they've escaped, they're already deep in the forest. Worse yet, the mercenaries also discover that they took the bags, whose contents must be delivered to a drug trafficker who's not at all pleased by this setback. Returning to Mickey, we see him hide the bags in a remote part of the forest, lifting a big weight off his shoulders. After that, he silently heads back to the house to keep an eye on his enemies. At that moment, one of the mercenaries questions Kane about why he summoned them to fix his mistake. Kane responds by pointing a gun at him. He then breaks into laughter as if nothing happened, and everyone else takes it as a joke, even the mercenary who questioned him. But suddenly Franco, Kane's second in command, stabs the man several times. Right after that, Mickey rejoins his family to warn them they can only leave the same way they arrived because the mercenaries won't stop hunting them. In other words, Mickey has to hunt them first. Kane's henchmen split up in the forest to find Mickey, though that just gives the protagonist the advantage. He slips among the vegetation to take a mercenary by surprise and stab him. He then takes his radio to report the man's death to Kane, who immediately tells him that Noah begged for mercy when he was being tortured, but they killed him mercilessly anyway. And that's exactly what they planned to do to Mickey's family if he doesn't surrender. Mickey remains unmoved. Meanwhile, inside a cave, Jake tells his mother they should be helping his father, but she explains they're better off staying put. She also reveals that her father-in-law raised Mickey as a soldier and trained him in those lands, so he knows them better than anyone. Still, Jake grabs the rifle from his mother to head out and fight, only for Mickey to appear out of nowhere. put him in his place, and forbid him from touching another weapon again. That night, while the protagonist tries to rest, Kane speaks to him over the radio, reminding him of a conflict they had in Afghanistan. Overhearing this, Sophie demands an explanation. Mickey reveals that in the war, Kane forced his squad to chase down an innocent family just because they were from the enemy country. Though Mickey objected, his own brother sided with Kane and threatened him with a gun to keep him from interfering. Powerless, Sergeant Mickey had to watch as his men, including his brother, disobeyed his orders and executed an innocent family in cold blood. The soldiers also threatened to do the same to him if he told the higher-ups. After venting to his wife, Mickey goes on the attack again, disarming a mercenary who isn't too intimidated to see him, even comparing Mickey to actor Danny DeVito for his short stature. Despite the mercenary firing into the air in an attempt to hit Mickey, his family hears the shot from the cave, causing Jane to have an asthma attack, believing her father is dead. Seeing this, Jake immediately grabs the rifle and heads off to find Mickey, ignoring his mother's warnings. Meanwhile, Mickey continues his hunt, trying to take down a mercenary with a tree branch. This enemy is more skilled than expected, especially at close combat. After a fierce exchange of blows, Mickey nearly subdues him, but the mercenary recovers and uses his scarf as a weapon. When he tries to strangle Mickey, Mickey manages to grab the knife from his pants and stab the man in the leg. Injured, his rival fights back with his own knife, but Mickey uses him as a human shield when another mercenary arrives and starts shooting. The bullet hits the mercenary in Mickey's grasp, allowing him to retreat into the forest. Unfortunately, the mercenary manages to shoot Mickey in the side. After a short chase, Mickey surprises her, the second mercenary, from behind with a pistol. But in trying to disarm her, she attacks him hand-to-hand and applies a hold. Mickey frees himself by biting her, then beats her severely and impales her on a sharp branch of a tree. When Kane and his men find her corpse, they see the number 7 carved into the trunk, meaning there are only 7 of them left. Meanwhile, Mickey treats his wound with whatever he can find in the forest. Sophie and Jane head out to look for him because he's been out of contact for hours. Jake, for his part, is also trying to find him, but ends up accidentally alerting a pair of mercenaries. Luckily for him, his father drags him from behind and pulls him to safety. Mickey then exposes himself to the enemies so that his son can escape unharmed. One of the mercenaries sees him and starts a pursuit. A short distance away, the other mercenary loses track of Mickey in a small valley. Suddenly, Mickey emerges from the water, moves in stealthily, and tries to disarm the mercenary, but it turns out this enemy is also highly skilled. Despite Mickey fighting with all his might, the mercenary easily dodges and throws him back into the water, where he tries to drown him. After Mickey refuses to reveal the bag's location, he spots his pistol underwater and shoots his enemy in the head. Back with Jake, we see him hiding from the other mercenary in some old trenches, although it doesn't seem likely to work. Meanwhile, Sophie, overcome with panic in the forest because she can't find her husband or her son, is startled when a mercenary named Stan takes her and Jane prisoner. However, Stan isn't as cruel as the others. He even gives Jane an inhaler. Returning to the trenches, Mickey finds his son under threat from the mercenary. Mickey drops his pistol and promises to lead him to the bag's location if he lets his son go. However, the mercenary slaps Jake and brags that back in his homeland in Africa, he's killed kids even younger. The moment he aims at Jake, Mickey pulls out a second pistol from his back and executes the mercenary. He then warns Kane that they're down to 5. This time, though, Kane doesn't answer. Instead, Mickey hears his wife and daughter over the radio. Kane gives Mickey 2 hours to hand over the bags unless he wants to see them dead. After hanging up, Sophie threatens Kane, telling him not to touch her daughter again, which leads him to slap Sophie. That's too much for Stan, who says they should stay professional, but Kane has taken it personally, so much so that he kills Stan on the spot. Franco then restrains Sophie so Kane can assault Jane in another room. Knowing what's coming, Mickey hands a pistol to Jake and tells him to wait in a strategic spot while he rescues the rest of their family. Jake seems too frightened to hold the gun, but his father admits he's scared too, terrified in fact, and that's exactly what keeps him going. Mickey then sneaks over to Noah's house, killing a couple of guards in seconds. Meanwhile, Kane is trying to undress Jane, but hears a warning shot from Mickey. Immediately, Kane and Franco come out with Sophie and Jane, ready to kill them. Mickey points his weapon at himself, daring them to go ahead. If they kill his wife and daughter, he'll kill himself, and they'll never find out where the bags are. Kane doesn't believe he's serious, so Mickey proposes to hand over the bags in exchange for letting them go. But the mercenary will only let Mickey pick one of them. Without a moment's hesitation, Mickey chooses to save his wife. Sophie is furious because their daughter would remain with the mercenaries. Mickey reminds her that Jake still needs her and orders her to flee with him. While Kane keeps watch over Jane in the house, Mickey leads Franco to where he hid the bags. As soon as they arrive, Franco gets orders to kill Mickey, but Mickey was expecting that and attacks Franco with one of the bags. However, Franco quickly flips the situation since he's twice Mickey's size and brandishes a knife. Mickey manages only to knock the blade away, but ends up on the ground. Instead of finishing him off, Franco starts ranting about hunting down Mickey's wife and son next. Not realizing Mickey is reaching for the knife on the ground, he stabs Franco in the foot and then slams the mercenary's face down. Mickey sets out for the house, where Kane is taunting Jane until she shoves him away and runs outside. Though Mickey arrives at the spot, Kane is quicker and overpowers Jane, threatening to break her neck if her father doesn't drop his weapon. When Mickey complies, Kane slaps his daughter, enraging Mickey, who immediately launches himself into the final fight. They trade a series of vicious blows and holds, ending in a stalemate, until Kane overpowers Mickey. Hurt, Mickey crawls to his unconscious daughter. Kane wants to be the last thing Jane sees before she dies. Mickey braces for the worst, but the shot never hits him. Suddenly, Kane sees blood on his own chest from a precise shot fired by Sophie. Finally, Mickey takes vengeance for his brother by breaking Kane's neck. With that, the ex-soldier reunites with his family and leaves that place once and for all, but not before burying the late Noah. Their next stop, New York.
If you want interesting movie recaps, like, share, and subscribe to follow us for more movie recaps.